Does Marvel have a plan? It's a question that I never thought I would have to ask myself. I mean, this is the studio that brought us potentially the best planned finale of anything in the history of ever. A long-running movie saga in which the films only get better and better, culminating in a story about a villain who actually succeeds, and his eventual downfall. That kind of thing has never been done. In fact, Avengers Infinity War may just be the greatest superhero movie of all time. So why does the MCU feel like a bunch of loosely strung filler movies with 3,000 different contradictions? Part 1. Phase 4 is bad? If you're even a casual movie reviewer or YouTube watcher fan, you'll know what the state of the MCU is right now. People hate Phase 4. You can scroll through countless videos of my issue with Phase 4, or why insert character here sucks, or Marvel has always been terrible, here's how it's worse. But one thing that I haven't seen anyone address in any of these videos is the quality of all of the movies. People are constantly making generalizations like Phase 4 is terrible, and even the specific ones refuse to go into detail on the good movies and shows. They just say She-Hulk and Multiverse of Madness and Black Widow are awful, but what about the others? Shang-Chi was a return to form for Marvel's origin stories. No Way Home was one of the most acclaimed Spider-Man films ever, falling ever so slightly short to Spider-Verse. And WandaVision was enjoyed by mostly everyone, save for those last couple episodes. See, at first I thought this was because people would rather focus on the bad shows and movies and run away with the conventional take of Phase 4 sucks. Or has something really changed in the very formula of the MCU? You see, even when I look through those reviewers that say that Phase 4 is awful, I can't help but notice that they still like a few movies or shows. They just think that overall, Phase 4 is bad. That's what this month's video is on. Why exactly do people hate the MCU so much? Part 2. Endgame who? It's 2019. Endgame was just released and casually became the highest grossing movie of all time, creating perhaps the biggest societal impact a movie ever has. You could not walk the halls of the 7th grade St. Thomas High School, yeah, I know it's Canadian, I don't know, what are you gonna do? Without people spoiling the crap out of this movie, even though it had only been out for a weekend. After Endgame, everyone's immediate thought was, what now? Where is everyone's story arc gonna go? What were they gonna do with the characters? What was going to happen to Spidey, Thor, Hulk? What was the plan? The concrete plan that they had given us from the beginning. And Marvel gave us Far From Home. Honestly, fantastic. Far From Home is probably the only post-Endgame movie that I can say with full confidence fits into the timeline. It's got amazing crossover characters that are really good together. It's got awesome fight scenes with great CGI. It's got heart and soul put into the movie, and it was clearly the plan for this character from the beginning of Infinity War. Most importantly though, it felt like it was a perfect continuation of the Endgame story. The giant universe-shifting event in Infinity War wasn't just ignored. More on that later. Then, wait, why would you release a movie about a character that just had an infamous death? Is it because Natasha's story needed more depth? Because A, it didn't, her story was pretty much flawless throughout the movies, and B, that's not what this movie did. Points for having Hopper in your movie though. Here's something that people refuse to admit. Now hear me out. No Way Home was also a terrible idea for a movie at this point in the timeline. Alternate universes, Doctor Strange being in a Spider-Man movie, it just complicates the timeline way more. And now we have to deal with a Peter Parker who has no friends and no past. Ideally, this makes him more interesting, but if they didn't have a plan for any of these movies, I doubt they have a plan here. Multiverse of Madness, I never thought it could get this bad. Poor Strange, man, he's always so much more interesting in every movie besides his own. Like, he was one of the best characters in Infinity War, and this movie is just not good. You know a movie's screwed when you take a famously unique director and tether him down so he can't make the movie he wants, while taking a character everyone liked from WandaVision and making her an evil monster. I mean, I guess this makes sense if you squint your eyes, but seeing Wanda like this completely contradicts WandaVision. She went through that whole arc in WandaVision where she realized what she was doing to the town is awful and she needs to stop, only to revert to taking over the tri-state area all over again. This movie attempts to have some sort of reconciliation with Strange's love interest in an alternate timeline or something. I don't know. To make it actually feel like his story. I mean, he's on the cover, right? But it's so half-assed because they have to fit in like 6 new characters, 5 of which die, by the way, and Wanda. It's just inevitable that these people aren't going to find the time they need to develop themselves, leading to an epic non-climax. The whole movie is so emblematic of the exact problem Phase 4 has. It's so rushed because they want to cram in like 45 different plot lines with old characters while still introducing new characters that need to have some sort of justification for why they weren't fighting Thanos, and introducing new gimmicks like time travel and alternate timelines. I mean, as of now, there is an alternate timeline company in Loki that was destroyed by the end of the series. Really inspiring change there, guys. An entire deviant universe in Eternals, which they also find new information about in that movie, and alternate universes in No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness. Oh, the good old days. Part 3. The good old days. It's tempting to say that the older movies in Phase 1 were perfect the way they were, but I actually think that's not true. The thing the older movies had going for them was that there was a clear plan from the beginning. Sure, Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America were all pretty generic movies. Don't get me wrong, good generic movies, and putting Thor next to those 3 is honestly kind of funny to me, but nothing super out of the ordinary. We look at these movies fondly because of everything that came after them. I mean, Thor is not a good movie if you evaluate it as a regular movie. For me at least, it's a good movie when you evaluate it as a piece of the overall MCU puzzle. And that's actually something I can say for quite a few of the older MCU movies. The Ant-Man films? Fine, but man, Ant-Man being introduced there makes so much sense given where he's gonna be in Civil War. Iron Man 2 and 3 really fleshes out Tony's character, even though they're both nothing special as their own movies. These new movies and shows don't really get this benefit. At least not yet. There's no moment in any of these movies or shows that make me think, wow, this really makes sense given the next couple films. There's no room for that because they're just way too complicated. It's the inverse of what we saw in Phase 1. The properties are technically pretty good, but they just don't fit together. And that's the real tragedy of Marvel Phase 4 so far. These projects are bursting with passion. Multiverse of Madness? I never thought that I would live to see the day where Wanda becomes such a ridiculously insane villain with the coolest powers. In fact, now that I say it out loud, this film is shot kind of like a horror movie. The What If series? Holy shit, what a creative idea. So many awesome moments in that series that no one ever talks about. The Eternals? So many cool and memorable characters with their own set of powers, and a unique look on being a superhero. WandaVision, No Way Home? They were just really good. How sad is it that these movies with legitimate passion behind them are being deemed as failures by pretty much everyone because there's no plan for them overall? But unfortunately, I think that's what the MCU has become. It's no longer about a connected universe with a carefully crafted mega story that culminates in one movie. And even though Infinity War is one of my favorite films, I think I'm okay with that. Infinity War was a massive event, but I genuinely like most of these movies. Marvel being hit or miss is okay with me. They had their time. And now I'm going to try to put aside the fact that I want a connected universe and enjoy the creativity put into almost all of their films and shows. Does Marvel have a plan? I honestly don't think so. But as long as they don't, I'm just going to enjoy the ride.